This is part two, the 50th special episode. So stay tuned and enjoy. Sure, go ahead.
Just to finish off with like the selfless part in particular, and I would again cite your example on some other parents I've seen that when they're really selfless with the parenting thing, and that quote from that there's that chapter about children from the Khalil Gibran book, The Prophet, where he talks about how children come through
Yes,
you, they are not yours,
your
all those. I
property and
think you
all.
mentioned
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
quote as well, and so when
Do you
parents
know about that, Raid? I'll send you that poem from Khalil Gibran. It's a very good.
just the point with that
Yeah,
being when parents are at that level of awareness, and then that's when I really do think it becomes a truly selfless
yeah, because
act
when we are
beyond the
there are many parents there that they like to see they because it's a process, right? So is that a
right.
bad thing to do? Like you have a human being that you do care, those who care, and do bring them up without attaching too much, which I think we both don't attach so much, but we do expect you to respect us and have something to
But
do.
also I think rides analysis applies in majority of cases, like especially when I go back to the our Desi context as well, like how obsessive parents
What
are
is
with their
desi
children.
for people who don't know?
Sorry, South Asian context.
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan and India, at least what I've seen,
Mm.
Bangladesh to a certain extent, but I
Yeah.
haven't had too much exposure to Bangladeshis. But um, this possessiveness with the children about like, oh, like mera beta, like my son, it's like ye kiya, was like that.
But that
There's
happens in
this
this any other culture as well.
My
There.
no,
son's a doctor.
no. That I agree. I'm just saying like the examples I've seen growing up when I look at relative to you, right?
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
looking at a cultural context in this, particularly in a more kind of a culture where so much validation, particularly for women and mothers, comes
Mm.
through their sons. Like
Yeah,
when
that's true.
they're disempowered in many situations, and they
Mm.
find the only power they can find is through the male relation.
Okay.
Also, remember when people had kids to have workers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, right. Okay. Um, what gives you inner peace or calm when you think about your childhood? Whoever is ready can go ahead.
um, Alia Mama house, just jumping in you and Papa's bed in the morning.
Oh,
I forgot that used to happen, but sometimes I remember it.
okay.
Um, that and then when we used to do that thing where we would all sleep in the living room on the floor
Hmm. Hmm.
and like or to go to sleep watching TV or something.
Yeah, when we used
Really?
to watch something.
Yeah.
Raid
We used
has
to
a
like
bad memory.
no, we used to watch stuff, and then
Yeah.
especially I remember at the old Yamama house we used to do
Yeah.
this where we'd all like sleep on the floor and it was like so cozy on the carpet. And
Can you repeat the question?
Right. Something that
Uh,
brings you inner peace and calm that you think about and you say, I know that white light in the room.
wow, yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah, just like in
And
Alia
your
Mama
mother.
in that bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
the curtains wouldn't be quite
yeah.
closed, but just that sliver of light right in the middle, I would wake up to it, and
Mm.
I'd be like the first one awake.
Mm.
And I don't know, I was
You were the
always
first one to wake
just
up. I thought I was the first one
No,
to wake
he was supposed to be awake on the weekend,
up. On the weekend.
not on the weekday. On the weekday, I had to like, right?
because
Right?
the weekend I had all day to do whatever I
Yes,
wanted, so I
yes.
had to use all the time.
So
No,
that
it makes
shows
complete sense.
that shows that he was always like that. So he wanted everything in his control. Okay. All right. Good. I'm hoping to have an interview in Urdu as well from both of you. So that will be a good example for me and for others to know that I have taught my children to read and write in Urdu as well. So, Raid, you
I'm
better
gonna test that. So what
finish
does
up.
this
Yes,
say?
Fit
exactly.
fat.
All right. Do you like being a son or you both?
As opposed to
A daughter.
In your role, I mean to say.
I
Like,
don't know any alternatives, so yes.
maybe that question is not exactly what. Okay. So, like, do you prefer not being a son and being just by yourself as an individual?
I can answer.
Yes. Please go ahead.
That's a very loaded question because ultimately we exist because of our parents' decision. We
Yeah.
had no agency
Or mistake in some cases. Not
or
us,
mistake.
but
No, no, no.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I will not edit
Well,
this.
that's a very valid point.
Okay.
That some people also do
Yeah.
exist unintentionally, which is
So let's move on to another question. This will be especially for Raaid also a good question. That what is the value of schools and colleges that you attended? Did you teach? Did you teach? Did they teach you life lessons? And what did you really learn? Thinking skills, or what did you like and disliked about it? It's a loaded. Okay, maybe is that it's a loaded question again. So
Yeah.
talk about because you're young and I want young people to hear you.
Do you want to go first, Saaid, or I'll try to keep my thing concise and not go on a rant.
up to
No, you
you.
can rant about it, but also talk about the good stuff.
Give us balance of a perspective.
Okay. Personally, and I apologize if this comes off as cocky and douchey, but K through 12 was partially a waste of time, in my opinion, because of the way they organized it. I felt that I and many of my classmates at various times were far more capable than what they were teaching us, and we were not challenged and not engaged properly. I think the first time I actually felt like I was challenged by anything was Miss Rounseville's calculus class. And that was right at the end of high school. And even that was not too bad. It was just like, oh, like, cool. Like, this is something challenging, finally. And that's not to say the material was easy. Again, it's the organization.
Okay, that's the differentiation.
That, like, where if someone is showing an interest in something and showing an aptitude in something, why not try to speed them up? And that's where then the argument against that would be, well, public schools only have so many resources, and like they can't necessarily dedicate all this time and attention and money to one or two students, right? So you have to, I guess you have to work with what you're dealt with. But I found that lacking.
Is it better in private schools? Have you found that out?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know Azar was technically a private school.
In Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
But I don't know. And then once I got to college, similar, different manifestations, similar emotional response on my ends, where I felt the organization was still odd, in that I have to take a certain number of classes on a certain schedule in the same manner as someone pursuing a completely different topic. Now, this is not to denigrate any other area of study, but why should learning electrical engineering with all its advanced physics and electronics and electromagnetism be taught in the same way as, say, journalism? There are two very different fields. And while there are many core educational things to cover, like the ability to critically think, the ability to learn and pursue knowledge by oneself, those are things that I felt I did get out of college, which was nice. But most of what I got out of school was not based on content. I got a good network of both professors to stay in touch with, along with peers who are going on to do successful. So again, it was the organization, the basing, right? The first 2 years of college felt like review for me and many of my peers, which is, in my view, time wasted. Sure, I had fun. Sure, I met good professors and people, but at the end of the day, the most valuable thing was the network and the syllabus. If any of those, and again, not to say that the professors were bad teachers, or that I didn't get anything out of the lab resources at school. The hands-on experience was very useful, and some teachers are very good at explaining certain things. But a library is free. The internet is free. If you tell me what I should learn, I can go learn it if I want to, as long as I have a path. So I do not feel like my college education was worth what we paid for.
So you could have done in less time the same thing. That's also what you're trying to say?
Yes, that as
Okay.
well. And I said, and they wouldn't let me. I
Okay.
tried.
Okay. Side, but okay. So let Side finish, and then maybe you can think about something that was good about, or did you experience skills or anything? Anyway, Side, can you talk about it also?
Yeah, this is just school experience and college experience, like all the way to K through 12, and then yeah, sorry, good time. Um, so I remember. So I didn't realize kind of the nature of the K through 12 experience until I came to college, and was more or less not facing, like kind of, and and when I saw kids coming from private schools, and I saw the rigor and intellectual cultivation that they had experienced relative to what I've experienced growing up, I noticed that was a huge difference.
Oh, so there was difference in your experience from coming from private school versus
me, just even despite having done relatively well in the public school system here, and then I would consider the American school back in Saudi Arabia in the same vein. I wouldn't consider any of those like elite kind of prep schools that we knew just even in our town, like Groton School or Lawrence Academy or something. So that was a huge difference I noticed in the capability of those kids versus me.
I'm so sorry we didn't put you in private.
No, that's not the point. I think the point is then like, so what's the difference in the curriculums, and like it's obviously a difference in resources. I mean, Groton School has like a computer science department, I'm pretty sure. So like kids going in who already knew computer science, who didn't even have to take like the first half of the major classes, right? And then I'm coming in and I have no exposure to programming or something. And that's also, I'm someone, this is where I'm different from Raaid, I really need the structure. So in general, I loved my college environment.
Okay.
I don't know how the differences in the school impacted in, for example, like being a smaller school and then being able to devote much more like resources per student. Because I felt like I had a lot of attention. I felt like I had a lot of flexibility. I could really, within the requirements they had for liberal arts education, I could tailor my education to whatever I wanted. So the K through 12 process, I thrived, at least I remember, because I felt like the difference between me and the other students, and I stood out because I did the work. And that's all I had to do for most of my life until college. And then I gave this sense of, oh, I'm awesome, I'm smart, I'm all these things, without ever actually really having put effort. So that was one thing I would say that, and this was primarily, I would say, due to us moving around and not being able to do accelerated programs. Like, I believe if we'd stayed in New Jersey, right, we could have gone ahead or something. Like, we had very wonderful, nurturing environments. Remember the teachers like Mrs. Lewick, Mrs. Marth, all those teachers, KG2 through second grade, who were very loving and cultivating. We learned whatever we needed to at that age. Or at least I think, I don't know how, if Raaid remembers, and like, I'm assuming he was bored. Like, Raaid was always bored in school.
Right. Raaid is, he expected more from himself and the system.
But he was much more of like an autodidact from an early age. He was much more self-driven. He needed much more of a challenge. And I was okay with whatever was coming along. I guess that's why I was satisfied with it. So there was a big difference there between us as well.
Okay. Thank you. So, yeah, I guess two boys coming from the same parents, are different. So every child is different. So for parents and children to understand that they should take each child as they are, and they both can't be the same at all. So
even if you give them rhyming names.
Well, kind of.
Should you have tried the same name?
Yes. Okay, so I think we will continue because you are two people, so it can't be that short of a program. So I would say that you're watching Light Up with Shua with Saaid Arshad and Raaid Arshad. Do you enjoy the work you are doing now?
Wonder if Michael will hear this. Probably not. I enjoy wearing many hats, and
Okay.
that's the part I've really enjoyed at being at this startup.
Mm-hmm.
I like not being a cog in a machine. I like that I have to chime in on some marketing decision here. Not that it's my call, but like I have input.
Mm.
Similar thing on some of the business end. I like that I get to essentially be a product manager and product designer as well as a software architect, as well as an actual software engineer and developer. And I feel like I've learned a lot, and I've been very happy with it. Is this my dream job? Probably not.
Okay. All right, Saaid.
I'm thinking about loving what I'm doing right now. The overall experience in general, similar to that, I have a lot of different things to do. I'm basically managing my own project, which is this medical device project, trying to use electrical imaging technology to image blood flow out of the heart. So it's a biomedical application. We work in a hospital. I work with med students. I work with a cardiologist. I work with my advisor, of course, was a professor, and I've got lab mates. So that's all the collaboration. I work with wonderful, brilliant people who I learn a lot from every day. And the biggest thing for me is the process of doing research as a PhD. It's given me a confidence and a confidence in my abilities that I didn't know was there.
Are you planning to do a PhD, Raaid?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Wow, that was strong. Okay.
Sorry, Dad.
So do you dislike anything in Saaid, because you love everything what you're doing with your PhD and all the related hats that you wear? You both are in music. You like that. That is different than what you work. I mean, your work is, right? Okay.
So do we dislike anything in our job, or
anything in your?
Sometimes it feels too open-ended, but
Not so strong. Okay, strong in terms of like you don't really dislike that so often, but Raaid is more. So we'll talk about Raaid's future plans later.
If I could just add a short thing to my work thing, is that I'm happy at my job.
Okay.
But I see it as a stepping stone to where I want to get.
Okay. All right.
My ultimate philanthropic vision is to help get clean water and clean energy to as many places as possible.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get to. I know that you were big on that. And Saaid, do you have any interest in that area, or do you feel that we should pay attention to environment in some way or the other?
No, I hate the environment. Obviously, it's. I mean, well, not obviously, but like it's really. This again really comes to your topic of awareness in terms of I don't have the same clarity of goals in terms of what I want to do long term, but I know in terms of my own lifestyle and my principles I want to live by, being aware of the impact I'm having on the environment is essential. Like it's just as part of my faith as well. It's something integral that I need to really think about at higher and higher levels as I go through my life, especially living in this country where our impact is much more pronounced, consuming huge amounts of resources for our daily life.
Okay, thank you. All right, what do you like about yourself? Raaid or Saaid or Saaid? Saaid. Raaid.
Want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Go for it.
Like about myself?
It's not that hard.
I have
There's so much to choose from, you know?
Oh.
A big thing I would say is I think we were lucky to have a voracious appetite to learn and read instilled in us. So I'm very happy about that.
That's good.
You instill that value in us, our families in general instill that value in us from an early age, and I'm very grateful for that. And I love that about myself. And it's a self-perpetuating. Like the motivation is to read and find a book, and it's
how do you think? How do you think we added that? What?
You've always had a very
no. I want to know, like, maybe what's your perspective,
you've had a very
right?
large. library at home, and you always had these books just there, and they always when we were small, it always seemed so like this huge epic wall of knowledge that we one day would access. You were always reading as well, and then Papa was, Papa is himself a PhD, and then he was always a very intellectually curious, like interrogating everything to the core of understanding things. So, and then of course Shanu Khala is a philosophy major, and Zuzu Khala is in education, and like I mean, yeah. So given the Khalas, given the family, I mean that exposure, it's just thank God, given that we were going to be more or less in that trajectory.
Okay.
Hopefully, in which we are. So.
Right.
Just to piggyback off that briefly, I remember these little like booklet things that like you got me reading early. I remember that. And there's like a video game on the computer associated with the reading.
Reader Rabbit?
I remember that. Yeah.
Reader Rabbit.
Yes. That's what it was.
Reader Rabbit and the dinosaur thingy that... the Tonka truck. Or Tonka
but like specifically for reading, the Reader Rabbit thing. Yeah. And then on the topic of Zuzu Khala, I remember one night in Pakistan, or a week or so, she read us Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest as a bedtime story. And I realized that later in AP English, and I was like, why does this sound so familiar? But anyway, thing I like best about myself is that now I am abundantly confident in myself, in that I would like to think it's measured. Some may perceive it as cocky, but I feel that if I put my mind to something, if I want to learn something, if I want to do something, there is not really much stopping me from accomplishing it.
So that's the good thing you like about yourself.
Yeah.
And something that you would like to change. Anyone of you can go ahead with that.
I can go.
And not too many, one thing.
No. Well, I think a big thing I would say is I get discouraged very easily. I think.
So you would like to change that. Are you working on it?
Definitely. I've seen it's a matter of resilience. I've been growing more and more, but just if my advisor says something even slightly critical, just taking it so personally and taking it so heavily, and not being able to take it as simply a piece of information that I can incorporate to improve. And just the physiological response to those situations has been very not healthy for me.
Let's hear Raaid's answer, so maybe he can help you with that, if he is good.
But I'm working on it. I've gotten much better.
Okay. What is failure in your view?
Right.
A learning experience.
What is success in your view?
Achieving a goal.
Are you asking, or are you sure?
I'm not sure.
What is failure in your view? You said. Okay. Saaid?
Similar answers, I would say. I like the answer for success, which is you had a goal and you achieved it. And then failure is, I guess, the opposite of that. Was you had the goal and you didn't achieve it, but it's obviously much more complicated.
Yeah, that's true.
I think they're actually this two sides of the same coin, and they're less binary than how we define it.
Do you feel that if you are challenged or you fail at something, does that discourage you, or do you have more drive to, put more effort and then fix it or achieve it?
It depends on context, but generally, I'm a little disheartened at first, but then I usually redouble my efforts. But it's very contextual, right? Like you have to evaluate whether or not, what are you trying to achieve? Do you need to reset your goal? Yada yada.
Okay, Saaid.
Like I mentioned before, I used to get very easily discouraged, but now once you take any sort of distress or certain kinds of distress and certain kinds of pain as basically a symptom of growth or learning, then it becomes much easier to just take it and then learn from it and move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What is to live a healthy, fulfilling life?
Um, so many things.
Just
I think the
one
most
or
important
short
things
example.
are um, what's the impact you're having on the people in the communities around you.
Hmm.
If it's positive
Hmm.
for your community and for yourself, then I think that's a good definition of a healthy, fulfilling life.
Right.
Because to me, ultimately, people matter the most.
You can
Um,
say this is a very deep question, rich question, hard question. Appreciate my questions.
um,
Oh, you still didn't. Okay. Hmm. Go
I'm
ahead.
thinking.
I
So
know,
just
I know.
by virtue of my lack of answer,
Ooh.
you can pat yourself on the back. um, Healthy and fulfilling life is, I don't know, manner, living in a way that you are like at peace with yourself and your surroundings and those around you.
Hmm. Hmm. So, do you feel, both of you feel fulfilled?
Not entirely, but getting there.
Hmm. Okay. How important are relationships for you?
Humans are social creatures, and without relationships, we would pretty much die. So very.
Hmm. Side, any different answer or similar? Are you
Same
twins?
sentiment. I think they're the most important. For me, at least, human relationships are the most. I think the most important for me aspects of the human experience.
Can you live without them?
In theory, sure, you can survive like a certain amount of time without people, but ultimately, it's going to be very, very, very difficult.
Hmm.
So,
What really matters to you?
I think
Go ahead, go ahead. Whoever wants to, you know.
uh, core principles and then people. So core principles matlab give for me my faith and the values it asks for, in particular kindness, compassion, and mercy, and showing that towards every person I meet, um, and then the people who I relate to on a daily basis and in life in general, and who I choose to keep in my life.
I don't know what matters to me. I'm still figuring it out.
Okay,
There's a lot of things that do, but I don't know what is the driving one.
okay. What completes you?
Music,
Hmm. Side.
not listening to it, making it.
Okay.
Um, Serving others, making other people happy.
You feel okay.
Yeah,
That one
that's
too.
fine.
You, which one?
I mean, I agree with Syed as well.
Okay. That
Like
completes you?
I'm trying to think of what is fulfilling to me. So
Hmm.
yeah, like being a TA, just helping people learn something was
Hmm.
very, very satisfying. Yeah.
Hmm. What is love for you? Let's put it this way. Difficult question?
No, I immediately think, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Yes.
It's a feeling, and more so, it's a decision and an action.
Side.
Yeah, I agree. In particular, I'll add love is really being, for me at least, being able to put aside yourself and really focus on the other and what they need, and it incorporates the whole feeling and the action and the sense of commitment also as well.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know. Thank you for watching part two, this 50th special episode with the Saaid and Raaid. I hope you've enjoyed so far. And now, please, next week, stay tuned for part three with them.